So Angel Clark is our instructor. She's been a master gardener since 2020. She lives in Chelan with her husband Bill. They're co-owners of Diamondback Acres, an organic apple, cherry, and blueberry farm. She's a retired elementary school teacher. She's also an avid gardener and blogger. You can find her blog at agrarianangel.com. Again, that's agrarianangel.com. She's co-coordinator of Homer's Garden at our program's community education garden here in Wenatchee. And she's also active in plant clinics. So I'm going to turn it over to Angel.
Okay, let me get started here.
Looks great, Angel.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the introduction, Marco. And I'm going to talk about, to begin with, growing blueberries in Lake Chelan. Let's see here. We have a commercial blueberry farm. So a little background, Marco mentioned, I joined the Master Gardener program with the class of 2020. Our farm is Diamondback Acres, and we've been farming blueberries since 2007. We're at the 2,000-foot elevation level on the north side of Lake Chelan. Blueberries belong to the Ericaceae family of plants. That's cranberries, huckleberries, rhododendrons, azaleas. They're perennials and deciduous shrubs. My purpose today is to share growing tips and inspire home gardeners to grow blueberries. There's a lot to learn about growing blueberries. We're still learning as we continue to plant additional acres of blueberries. Today I'm going to cover the following: planting, irrigation, weed control, pruning, harvest and storage, disease, and insects. Our blueberries on the farm. We grow northern high bush blueberries. The oldest cultivars are Draper and Liberty that we planted in 2008. Each field has two different cultivars to promote fruit set, size, and a longer harvest season. And this is a picture of the upper field, which has a nice view of the lake. So the planting process, it includes site selection, soil preparation, plant selection, and planting. The top photo shows early spring, and we have prepared the soil the fall before, and we've applied landscape cloth and cut holes in the landscape cloth, and then pre-dug the holes. The lower photo shows the planting process. So by the time we plant, everything's in place for a quick, moist transition from pot to ground. Site selection. When choosing your blueberry growing site, consider the following. Blueberries love full sun. Sunlight promotes flower and fruit development, fruit quality, disease prevention, ripening. Blueberries don't like soggy soil because of their fine, shallow roots. Sandy loam is ideal because it allows excess water to drain away quickly, preventing root rot and other water-related issues. Since we planted in 2008, and when we did, we created berms to promote drainage. Since then, WSU has determined Eastern Washington in general doesn't need the mounded rows for adequate drainage. So you'll see mounded rows mostly on the western side of the state. Soil prep. We soil test 1 year in advance to allow time to prepare the soil with amendments. So when you are considering your site, it's a good idea to review how much sand, loam, or clay you have and plan to modify with the goal of sandy loam. Sandy loam soil consists of approximately 60 to 70% sand, 20 to 30% silt, and 10% clay. This balanced combination of different sized particles allows for good drainage, moisture retention, and aeration. Ideal pH for blueberries is 4.5 to 5.5. Our soils in Eastern Washington are more alkaline than acidic. So you can add elemental sulfur to lower pH. And to increase organic matter, you can use sawdust from fir or pine trees. That aids in oil aeration, drainage, and water holding capacity. You can also add well-aged manure or peat moss for organic matter. Mix organic amendments into the soil before planting blueberries and apply landscape cloth or mulch to maintain soil moisture and fertility. Blueberry cultivar information. A great resource online for berry cultivar information comes from Oregon State University. At this website, both blueberries and raspberry publications are available. The information provided on each cultivar includes ripening season, the bush habit, berry size, and chilling level. This photo shows early spring prep for planting. The dark soil or dark rows that you see shows the amendments we added in the fall. We put all the irrigation system in before we plant, so there's immediate moisture available to the new plants. So once they're planted, from the first to second year bush, we will rub off berries to allow the bush to spend energy on vegetative growth. At 5 to 7 year old, we will take these older bushes. They will be bearing about 4 to 5 pounds of fruit per plant. Mature plants 6 to 8 years old may bear 20 to 25 pounds of fruit. And blueberry plants may live 50 years or more. Here's a picture of our irrigation installation. We use 2 drip lines because we drip irrigate daily and turn on the overhead sprinkler when temperatures are hotter than 80 degrees. The overhead sprinklers also keep the grass green between the rows. It's critical to check the lines daily so roots don't dry out. Occasionally, rodents will damage the lines, so repairs have to happen quickly. We also fertigate through our drip lines. Fertigation allows for the simultaneous application of water and nutrients directly to the root zone of plants through irrigation water. We've had good results fertilizing with fish emulsion. Mulching. Pulling medium to large size weeds can damage blueberry roots. We don't use herbicides in organic farming. We use a permeable heavyweight weed mat or landscape cloth made of woven polypropylene. The cloth improves crop growth and productivity. It mitigates fluctuating temperatures and water loss from the heat. In this photo, the team is applying the cloth to the burned row. Weed mat cutting tools we have used include a stovepipe with a diameter of 8 inches and a propane cloth or propane torch to melt the cloth around the edge of the stovepipe. And I'm sure there's a lot more options that are more techy than our old-fashioned. So important to keep the roots moist throughout this process. Before we put our blueberries in the ground, water is everywhere. We water the plants before planting, during planting, and after planting. The entire process keeps the roots moist. Different varieties of blueberries have varying growth habits, including bushy or spreading growth. in regards to how to space when you plant. So think about that. Compact varieties may require less spacing between plants, while more vigorous varieties may need additional space to allow for adequate growth and airflow. We have just done fine with 4 feet apart. And now time out for a laugh. That's a lot of information. We can just take a little break. I love dogs. I love this joke. Okay. Moving along. Let's talk about pruning. Why is pruning important? Plants are healthier with more sunlight penetration. Pruning opens up the bush for more sunlight and air circulation. Removing the oldest wood and keeping some new wood is called wood rotation. This promotes fruiting and discourages diseases. On our 4.4 acres of Drapers and Liberties that are 15 years old, we average 55,000 pounds of berries on 6,000 bushes. When to prune? We prune now. We prune in March, just as fruit buds start to swell. This makes it easier to distinguish between a fruit bud and a leaf bud. Our elevation here is 2,000 feet. So we're a little behind lake level. So fruit buds versus leaf buds. These fruit buds are easy to identify because they are fat. And that you'll see them at the tips of 1-year-old shoots. The leaf buds are thin and pointed. By carefully pruning, you're promoting berry size and production. Let's talk about blueberry vocabulary because we're going to have you meet in breakout rooms and it'll help to discuss pruning when you can talk about the different parts of a blueberry bush. So fibrous roots. As I mentioned, blueberries have shallow thread-like roots, mostly concentrated in the top 12 to 18 inches of soil. A whip refers to a young unbranched shoot or stem that typically arises from the base of a blueberry plant or from the crown area near the soil surface. Twiggy refers to the small, thin, and often densely branched portion of the plant structure. Twiggy branches typically develop from older wood and can form dense clusters. Cane refers to a woody stem or branch of a blueberry plant. Lateral is a side shoot or branch that grows horizontally or diagonally from a main stem or a cane. 2-year-old wood, these older canes have completed their first year of growth and have developed flower buds during that time, and they will produce fruit this year. And then we all know what buds are. The tools you'll need for pruning, loppers are the blue handle tool, hand pruner is the red handle, and then some gloves. So far, sanitizing the tools between plants has not been a problem for us. If we had a virus, we would include buckets of water and bleach to dip cutting tools and sanitize between the plants. So to help you remember pruning blueberries, I've created an acronym, OIL. So OIL represents the 3 attributes we want in a pruned blueberry bush. O is for only 9 to 12 of the most vigorous canes growing from the base of the bush. You want a nice balance of old and new canes growing from the base, rotating the wood when you cut out the oldest and leave a few young whips, the 1-year-old canes, as replacements. This kind of maintenance promotes the life of the plant beyond 30 years. And you can see in the picture, the older canes are kind of gray and the new ones are the brown. I is for interior of the bush that should be open to sunlight to promote fruiting wood for next year. The open center will promote the growth of new canes with this increased sunlight and air circulation. This will improve bud set for next year's crop. L is for laterals, no more than 5 to 6 strong fruiting laterals on each upright cane. So the best production is on the 6-inch or longer laterals. Don't confuse these stronger limbs with the weak twiggy wood, which doesn't produce good berries. If you're wearing gloves, you can easily rub off the weak twiggy wood. Seek balance. Moderate pruning is the balance of fruit production and vigorous new growth. Hard pruning creates less berries and more new wood. Light pruning creates more small berries and weak twiggy growth. Moderate pruning creates the balance. Okay, so this is our breakout room activity. This first picture, well, both bushes in this diagram represent before and after pruning of a blueberry bush. So in your group, discuss what parts of the bush did the pruner remove for this final shape. You should have the vocabulary page to help with your discussion. And just remember, pruning involves removing the short-term new growth, the twiggy weak wood, removal of a crossing cane. You want to remove any inward growing or weak branches to open up the center of the bush and promote even growth. Encourage new growth and fruiting wood by selectively pruning older, non-productive branches. Remove up to 1/4 to 1/3 of the oldest canes each year to rejuvenate the plant and stimulate new growth from the base. So I'm going to stop my share and let Linda begin the breakout.
Just remember to elect someone, designate someone as the reporter. So when we come back to the full group, that person can report for your group. Tell us what happened in your group.
Yeah. So looking at the stuff and comparing it to the vocabulary page, it looks like a lot of the whips and twiggies and a fair number of the laterals were removed. Very likely the I of your oil acronym of opening up the interior of the bush to sunlight and airflow. Also cut down the number of laterals, or I think I just said laterals. Also the main canes down to the L of your acronym to 5 or 6 canes. It looks like there are few more than that, but also for probably increased berry production and increase sunlight and airflow.
Nice.
Thanks, Sally.
Mhm.
Room 2 included Sean and Sully.
So we discussed twiggies as well as cutting the older growth to allow for that vegetative rotation of them. Any crossing canes also look to have been removed, as well as the whips and some of the laterals as well to support the fruit growth. So that's what we discussed.
Okay.
Room 3 included Lisa and Lindsay.
So for us, we were talking about the whips, the twiggies, of course, canes, laterals. And then it also to us looked like some of the buds were cut off the top too. It didn't look like there was as many of the small pieces that were coming up on each of the stems as well.
Thank you. Room 4 included Heidi and Jack.
I think Heidi's,
Okay, we said pretty much all of the former statements. We talked about all of those things. One of the things we thought was perhaps it didn't have as many of the laterals as was recommended. Thought it was very symmetrical and allowed for light. And one of the questions we had is the ratio of new wood to the older canes. We weren't clear on that, so we'd like to get some more information on that.
Well, it's about rotating the wood. So as the plant matures and you get more older wood, you just want to be cutting out probably a ratio of a third to allow for the new canes to develop, the whips to become canes to rotate. But you know, yeah, if you use that ratio, that's safe.
Okay. Thanks.
Hmm?
Okay, and our 5th and final room included Daniel and Aaron.
We basically said all the same as everybody else. We used your oil acronym, saying we only want 9 to 12 vigorous canes, and that kind of looks like what that is, and that it should be
There's a
open.
key for Tom.
Okay, so you can get it.
Oh, hi. And then we were hoping that your slideshow is going to be available after this, so I wanted to ask that question because a lot of us weren't getting all the notes down. So
Sure.
okay. But yeah, did you say you cut out a third to a half of the plant each year, or was it a quarter to a third?
Well, it could be a quarter to a third if it's quite young. You know, it depends on how big, and they grow to be big because they live so long. And so the harder you prune, the more vegetative the plant will be. And so when they're probably 6 to 7 years old, you could cut out a third of the older canes and start, you know,
Okay.
it could be that ratio.
And the twiggy is kind of vegetative, right? That's why you want to get rid of it, because it's not going to produce fruit.
It will, but there'll be small berries, weak berries. It's not a strong growing, you know, situation. Weak. And so the berries will be weak. Yeah.
Angel, you have about 10 minutes left on your blueberry presentation.
Okay.
So why don't we do that and then we'll take a break.
All right. Okay.
Angel, could I ask a question? Is that okay?
Sure.
How do you keep your blueberry plants from spreading, like from where they don't want to go? Is it because you're pruning them very hard that they're not spreading where you don't want them to be, like
Right.
the roots? Okay.
Right. And yeah, it's pruning just keeps everything manageable and healthy and they, you know, they'll just those whips that grow will just it'll just become too much, and then the plant gets weak, and then you get diseases, and yeah.
Right. Okay.
There's 2 more questions in chat.
Sure.
From Heather, with the 1 to 3 and 9 to 12 vigorous canes, was not sure if the fruit production is always year 2 onwards. And as years pass, do you want a mix of all different ages?
Right, so you don't want them to produce fruit until year 3. So you're rubbing off the buds in year 1 and 2. And then, let's see, the second half of the question was,
After, as years pass, do you want a mix of all different ages?
right, because that's rotating the wood, yes. But you can have 2/3 of it, you know, the mature, fruit producing. But you're cutting out the oldest each time you prune, you know, each year. You're cutting out the oldest 1/3.
And one more question. Could you repeat what you said about when canes start to decline in production?
Well, like I said, the bush will live 50 years. And so if you're maintaining its health every year, it should continue to, you know, produce whips that become canes. So they're really, if it's not pushing new vegetation, then I would get some, I would think about the nutrition, fertilizer, soil test, pH. The pH is a big deal. It should be growing actively for up to 50 years. So.
Great, thank you. And please, everybody, remember to put questions in chat. Thank you. It's all back to you, Angel.
Okay. All right, so bloom. Even though blueberries are self-fertile, meaning they have the ability to produce fruit with their own pollen, the research says that 2 different cultivars with overlapping bloom time promotes fruit size, yield, harvest timing, disease resistance, genetic diversity, and flavor variability. For optimal results, choose cultivars that are compatible in terms of bloom time and plant them in close proximity to facilitate cross-pollination. We also bring in hives of honeybees to promote pollination. Harvesting blueberries. Our drapers ripen first. The blue color in the bushes signals weekly picking. The blue coloration of blueberries is due to the presence of pigments called anthocyanins. Anthocyanins are water-soluble pigments that belong to a group of compounds known as flavonoids. These pigments are responsible for the various shades of blue, purple, and red seen in many fruits, including blueberries. Color picking means everything we harvest, we do it by hand. And let's take a break for a laugh. Fertilizer. We fertigate in spring and summer. We add fish emulsion in the irrigation on a bi-weekly basis during the summer. In August, we add a tuna can of crab meal or a blend around the base of each plant. A yearly soil analysis determines what we add to prep the soil for the next season. And that blueberry is the result of the good fertilizers we use. Plant size. The Liberties have a very upright habit, and the Drapers have a compact habit. The growing habits here are our 2 oldest varieties. The upright Liberties are over 5 feet tall, and the Drapers in their compact, shorter height, they're about 3 feet tall. And here's a picking tutorial. you'll need for supplies, a hat, a 1-gallon picking bucket, harness with clips, and clean hands. Hygiene is critical because blueberries never get washed, rinsed, or sanitized. Our pickers wash hands at a washing station in the field. The reason to not wash is to protect the quote bloom or white powdery residue on the berries. The residue protects the berries from moisture loss, mold, and ultraviolet radiation. The best time of day, of course, is morning when it's cool. Here's a picture of a picker with a harness and a 1-gallon bucket, and he's using cupped hands. The harness goes over his shoulders, clips to the bucket in front, so both hands are free to pick. With the cupped hands together, the picker can use his or her thumbs to gently rub the berries off of the plant. The darker blueberries come off easily. The red berries are not as easy. So that makes it easier. Storing blueberries, we will rinse them in water when we bring them home. Fresh blueberries can last in the refrigerator for up to 10 days, and frozen blueberries can last up to 6 months. After we rinse them, we put them on a cookie sheet that's lined with wax paper, then set them in the freezer until frozen, and then move to an airtight container. So why eat blueberries? The antioxidants are compounds that help protect the body against damage from harmful molecules called free radicals. Free radicals are unstable molecules that cause oxidative stress, leading to cellular damage and contributing to various chronic diseases and the aging processes. Blueberries contain more antioxidants than most other fruits and vegetables. So organic blueberry pests and diseases. I took this picture when I was out working in the blueberries and just proof that robins love blueberries. And what we've learned is we have to be proactive and get things in place before the berries are ripe, before the birds have the habit to go to our fields and eat the blueberries. So we've contracted like with FFA, we've got kestrel nesting boxes. That's for a sparrowhawk, and if they're floating up above the field, that makes robins and rodents nervous. We also use battery operated squawkers and a dancing sock. Spotted wing Drosophila, or SWD. As the fruit approaches maturity, we place sticky traps around the field. This small fruit fly is attracted to the trap by the pheromone cap we place in the trap, so we check it, remove the flies, and record the number of flies we caught. Monitoring the insect presence helps us determine how much pressure we're experiencing. Spotted wing doesn't get to our location until later in August, which is a good thing because most of our crop has been harvested. These small vinegar flies like all soft fruit, so they're not just into blueberries. They like cherries, raspberries. You can see in the lower picture the white maggot inside the raspberries. Pacific Northwest blueberry diseases. There are 3 major viruses. The top picture is blueberry shock virus. It spreads by wind or bees. It resembles blueberry scorch virus, but may not appear the following spring. The lower left side picture is tomato ring spot virus. It spreads in soil by dagger nematode, causing distortion, circular chlorotic lesions on leaves. necrotic stem lesions. And then the lower right side picture is blueberry scorch virus, and this spreads with aphids causing vegetative shoot dieback in spring. The entire bush may die, and it will reappear each spring. And in conclusion, these are the resources where I got my information. And I will stop sharing my screen.
There's one question in chat. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. Is there a way to determine which blueberry cultivar you have if you weren't the one who planted the bush originally?
Probably. You know, if it's been properly pruned and you can tell that it has an upright habit versus a compact habit, you've narrowed it down to uprights or compacts. I'm not sure. I would have to research that some more, how different they are beyond their growing habit.
Okay, one more question. Could you repeat, did you say the traps you apply when fruit first appears, or when fruit is about to ripen, or both?
Both. Yeah, we have the traps for the like spotted wing Drosophila. Yeah, we get that out there right away.
No more questions.
Okay. So I'll hand it over to Marco.
Yeah, it's break time. Why don't we take a 10-minute break?
So we're getting all ready. Our time is probably stopped. So we're ready to go. So Angel or Marco, you guys got it.
Angel, you're muted.
Thank you. Okay, let's talk about home orchards. Bill and I organically farm 120 acres of apples. That includes Honeycrisp, Sweet Tangos, Kanzi, Pinatas, several varieties of cider apples, and Goldens. We've been farming organically since 1991. We've used a commodity model, which means our fruit is sold wholesale through a packing shed, and our returns are the current market price. Since 2020, we've been working on a direct-to-consumer online store. We also have a fruit stand at the orchard for direct sales as well. My purpose is to give you a quick overview of the difficulties involved with a home orchard. I'll cover the laws, best practices, which involves rootstock and sign selection, nurseries, planting, irrigation, pruning, pests and diseases, and harvest. Also, a list of Master Gardener resources for educating the public, educational handouts for the public, a pesticide application. I found a couple pesticide application companies that I'll share that are in Wenatchee. So I hope this knowledge that you can, I'm hoping that this knowledge will assist you to help homeowners to make good decisions. So Washington State has laws regarding fruit tree responsibilities. The laws exist because we are the top apple and cherry producer in the United States, and we're one of the top 3 producing states. Homeowners in Washington are legally responsible for controlling the insect pests in host trees on their property. The law protects Washington fruit growers from the economic losses of infested fruit rejected at market, or the additional required spray applications necessary to protect their crops from pests or diseases originating from neglected backyard fruit trees. So apples have calling moth, apple maggot, cherries have western cherry fruit fly, and pears have calling moth and pear scilla. This is the homepage of the Tri-County Pest Board website. The Tri-County Pest Board serves the tree fruit industry throughout Chelan, Douglas, and Okanagan counties. Their mission is to eradicate pest and disease infested vegetation that threatens commercial tree fruit growers. If a grower or homeowner has a concern, the Tri-County Pest Board website provides their contact information. So you can let them know. Here's a list of considerations for planting backyard tree fruit. So consider the commitment and extra work. This involves pruning, regular sprays, regular monitoring and harvesting. These activities require horticulture knowledge, equipment, and due diligence to care for the trees throughout the season while watching for pests and diseases that may present themselves. There's pesticide sprays. Homeowners need to be comfortable having pesticides sprayed around their homes to control potential pests and diseases in their backyard tree fruit. And then there's the expense, commercial pesticide application expense. Hiring a company to spray your backyard fruit trees is a maintenance expense that occurs 4 times a year. There are easier choices for homeowners. Let the commercial growers manage the orchard. Did I mention we have a fruit stand? Homeowners that want to grow their own fruit should consider peaches, nectarines, apricots, prunes, or plum trees. Pests in stone fruit are less troublesome to commercial growers. The pests in stone fruit are simpler. They have fewer generations per year. They don't overwinter, and they're easier to control with timely intervals.
Angel, we have a question.
Yes.
My home is just downriver from Wenatchee among orchards. The natural area in my backyard includes a wild native cherry tree that I don't spray. Should I remove the plant?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Commercial pesticide applicators in Wenatchee. When I look for companies that will care for home orchards, I found Harvest Valley Pest and Appleland Spray and Tree Services. Katrina at Appleland Spray and Tree Service gave me a quote, and they will do 1 application each season that begins at $310, depending on the size and number of trees. Winter season is February through March, and they use a dormant spray. Spring is April through May, and they spray for insect control. Summer is June through August, and they spray for insect control. And then fall is September through October, and again, it's insect control. Vita Green offers pruning. And a tip from WSU, as well as many pesticide manufacturers, advise against foliar pesticide application when trees are over 10 feet tall. And foliar pesticide application means that you're spraying the pesticides directly on the leaves. And this picture shows someone from the ground spraying trees. So he's got the PPE, which involves the suit, the gloves, the respirator. It's a big process. Rootstock and sign selection. All fruit and nut trees are 2 plants grafted together. Above ground, the sign wood presents variety characteristics like Honeycrisp, Gala, Fuji apples. Below ground, the rootstock makes up the root and collar system of the tree. A tree's rootstock controls tree size, fruiting precocity, soil moisture tolerance, and will provide some resistance to soil insect pests and diseases. Dwarf rootstocks like M9 or M26 are best for workable apple tree heights, like 6 to 8 feet tall, for minimizing ladder work. Gisela rootstocks produce dwarf cherry trees. The ultimate height of any tree can be greatly influenced by pruning and training. Rootstocks that impart more vigor to the apple tree, because they're not a dwarf, they simply make it harder to contain the trees to a desired height and width. So some nurseries for buying fruit and nut trees in our area. There's Emerald Desert Nursery in Quincy. Wenatchee has Save Mark Garden Center, which begins April and May. Wenatchee has Home Depot Garden Centers through summer. And there's Lowe's Garden Center, spring through summer. And then Van Well Nursery in Wenatchee. And I believe C&O retired and they no longer are an option. Planting bare root fruit trees. You begin by digging a hole large enough to allow the roots to spread out. Roughen the sides with a shovel so that the roots can grow through the walls of the hole. Place the root system on a low mound of loose soil in the hole. Make sure the graft union between the rootstock and the signwood remains above the ground surface. And if the signwood is below the ground surface, it will produce its own root system and the dwarfing impact of the rootstock will be lost. Conversely, any shoots that grow from the rootstock should be pruned as they will produce lower quality fruit and may outcompete the signwood. Reasons to prune. Pruning is essential for the health and productivity of the tree. It directs growth, maintains health, and manages the fruit-bearing potential. It increases light penetration for fruit spur formation and productivity. It reduces overall tree size for easier spray and harvest work. Trees that fruit on spurs should be maintained in an open form. Those that produce their crop on one-year-old wood, such as peaches and hazelnuts, benefit from pruning because it stimulates new wood formation and therefore more fruit. Think in terms of light penetration. No light equals no fruit. And a little break for humor. I love Far Side. Okay, common terms used in pruning and training fruit trees. According to Jeff Olson at Oregon State University, these are common terms in pruning and training of fruit trees. Let's review starting at the bottom of the tree. There's the trunk. We all know this one. Sucker sprout, also called a root sucker, is a shoot or stem that arises from the root system of a tree rather than from above ground branches. They are vigorous and fast growing. Crotch refers to the junction or angle where two branches or limbs of a tree meet. A wide crotch angle is preferred as it promotes a stronger branch. Secondary scaffold, a limb that grows from a primary scaffold limb. It's higher in the canopy of the tree. Water sprout or sucker refers to a vigorous shoot that grows vertically from the main branches or trunk of a tree, often resembling a straight, fast-growing stem with few lateral branches. Scaffold limb or leader is a large limb that forms a tree's framework, and leader is the uppermost portion of a scaffold limb. Pruning equipment is including a hand pruner, and this is useful for pruning young trees with smaller shoots. A long-handled lopping shear is good for almost all pruning jobs. And a pruning saw is helpful for large cuts. A tripod orchard ladder is best after you've had tripod safety instructions for setting your ladder. 4 years to prune a fruit tree. Pruning is part of the training process of a new tree. This begins at planting time. Spreaders, and you can see some spreaders in this diagram, they can be part of the training and pruning process. You start using spreaders when the tree is young, typically within the first 2 to 3 years after planting. This is when you're establishing the tree's framework and training its branches. During pruning, incorporate spreaders during the regular pruning seasons or sessions, especially when you want to train branches to grow horizontally rather than vertically. You can begin tying down limbs to promote fruit production on fruit trees once they are well established and have developed a strong framework of branches. This typically occurs after the tree has gone through its initial growth stages and has been pruned to encourage a balanced structure. This can take around 2 to 4 years, depending on the tree, species, and growth rate. In this diagram A, first winter, remove or severely head everything else but the 3 or 4 shoots to become the main scaffold branches. Second winter, B, select 1 or 2 more shoots to become main scaffold branches. Spreaders are used to create the 45 to 60 degree crotch angle to increase weight-bearing strength of the limbs. Third winter, scaffold selection is complete. Spreaders may be used again. And the fourth winter, it has a good open center, 4 main scaffold limbs evenly distributed around the trunk, and you may need more spreading. So we'll do another breakout room activity. Please review the illustration, discuss the recommended cuts and training for each year, and try to use the common terms used in pruning and training fruit trees. What equipment would you need to do this work? Notice, and we have the wood spreaders in the trees and discuss their purpose. Okay, I think that's everything to begin the breakout. And I'm gonna-
Ready?
Angel, it's the same situation where push through without another bathroom break, and then we'll just wrap up early.
Okay, thanks, Marco.
Yep.
Okay, well stated, everyone. Okay, let's talk about irrigation. The topics here are assessing soil moisture often, the irrigation season, and under tree or drip irrigation. So if you have a backyard fruit tree, you need to monitor the moisture. And you can do this physically by taking a handful of soil, and you want to get a good handful, squeeze the soil, and if it crumbles when released, the soil is too dry and needs more water. If a soil ball drips water when squeezed, then there's too much water. You're going to want to assess the soil from the tree root zone that's around 12 to 24 inches deep. And using a soil probe is the best tool for that. And that's what you see in the picture. You can, it kind of looks like a pogo stick, but you hold it upright and you can use your foot to push the probe into that depth and then pull it out and then assess the soil that's within the probe. Irrigation season begins early spring to late September with the greatest needs during the heat of the season. To accommodate the greater water demand in the summer, a grower may shorten the water set and repeat more frequently. Try to minimize water from contacting tree foliage, flowers that bloom and fruit. You don't want water contacting them. Keep the water under the tree using drip irrigation that's best to reduce incidence of tree fruit disease. Trees with deeper roots do not require much, if any, irrigation in early spring until there is full foliage, even if the weather turns hot. Daily observation of your backyard tree fruit is a proactive approach to organic or to orchard management. This enables you to address issues promptly, make informed decisions, and optimize crop quality and yield. Here are some great observation tools. There in the photo, there's a jeweler's loop, and you wear that on a lanyard for field observations. You can get them with 10 to 30 by strength. And when you come upon something that you can't see with the naked eye, you just pull up your lanyard and use the jeweler's magnifying glass, and you can see what it is that you know, it's just very handy. Extendable pole pruner. This allows you, that's in the top right, let's see, left-hand corner. And this allows you to reach up into the top of the tree and cut out a sucker or a little branch and check for mildew and cherry aphids. And just clip it and then bring it down to your level and inspect those leaves. The mildew can be on the backside and you might not see it from the ground. And definitely this is true for cherry aphids. Of course, there's the soil probe for moisture checks, and then insect sticky traps with or without lures. Fruit fly is a trap with all sticky sides because it's a passive trap. The fly bumps into it and then gets stuck. Codling moth and leaf roller uses a sticky trap with a lure, and the fly is attracted to a lure, then they get stuck. That requires weekly checks and, you know, recording what you have caught that week, cleaning it out. And of course, you know, the record keeping supplies could be your cell phone for photos and notes. You could use a traditional notebook to document events and dates, just some form of documentation. Home orchard pests. In commercial fruit orchards, these are the most serious pests. They directly damage the fruit itself. Home orchards will have to practice IPM to prevent these serious pests from infesting a sizable % of their harvested fruit. IPM is integrated pest management. It refers to a holistic and sustainable approach to managing pests, diseases, and other crop-related issues in fruit orchards. And another break for humor. I don't know how many people have both a dog and a cat. Okay, integrated pest management. Strategies for managing pest problems in fruit trees or berries. Examples in tree fruit include cultural. An example would be to choose dwarfing rootstock to help keep the tree height less than 10 feet. Behavioral, an example would be mating disruption using lures and culling moth traps. Mechanical example would be to remove weeds and keep grass short to discourage rodents around the trees. Biological, an example would be to promote healthy environment for beneficial insects such as ladybugs who love aphids. And chemical applications. Thorough knowledge of the biology and life cycle of target pests, knowledge of the labeled use of chemical and pesticides with a professional pesticide applicator license. Let's talk about apple maggot. Apple maggot. Apple maggot is a regulated pest. Washington State has quarantined areas and pest-free areas to protect commercial orchards. This means specific regions or zones within the state have been designated based on the presence or absence of this pest insect. Can you hear? I'm gonna stop share for a minute.
Okay,
Could you hear a beeping sound while I was presenting?
yes,
I was wondering,
I heard a little ping sound.
yeah, but I'm looking and it looks like my battery's good. I was just worried my computer was gonna shut down. I'll just keep going. Okay. Okay, so apple maggot, it's a regulated pest. Washington State has quarantined areas and pest-free areas to protect commercial orchards. This means specific regions or zones within the state have been designated based on the presence or absence of this pest insect. Quarantine areas are regions where the apple maggot has been detected or known to exist. Regulations to prevent the spread of apple maggot would be in place in these regions. Pest-free areas are regions in Washington where apple maggot has not been detected. So Lake Chelan is a pest-free area. Apple maggots will tunnel in the flesh of the apple, often just below the surface. If you identify apple maggot in your apples, learn the life cycle of this pest. WSU offers a decision aid system. It's a predictive model of adult apple maggot emergence. And so you can look into their system to help you treat the insect. If an orchard is in a quarantine area and is considered threatened by apple maggot, the orchard must be inspected either in the orchard or the packing house by Washington State Department of Agriculture before the crop can be sold. If an orchard is not in a quarantine area, but an apple maggot is detected within a half mile, the orchard is considered threatened and monitoring or control action should begin. The orchard will need to be inspected again by Washington State Department of Agriculture. Codling moth. This is the most prominent pest in the Pacific Northwest. It also attacks pears, plums, and walnuts. It's very difficult to control. They have a relatively short life cycle with multiple generations per year. It's allowing them to rapidly increase in population and infest orchards throughout the growing season. Infested fruit has to be destroyed or the larva will come out of the apple and overwinter in the bark of the tree. So if we find apples that have codling moth injury, we have to destroy those apples because there's no other way. If you can't just throw the apple on the ground, it's too much of a problem. Learn the life cycle of codling moth, and sticky traps with lures for weekly checks are great for determining if the pest is present. Western cherry fruit fly. One fruit fly larva in a grower's total manifest of fruit, the Department of Ag will no longer accept the grower. 2 fruit fly larvae from the same warehouse in the same season, California won't take the fruit from that shed for X number of weeks. The potential damage is so great, growers spray for it whether they have the pest or not. In cherries, fruit fly is a problem for about 6 weeks. Cherry fruit fly has 1 generation a year. That's why, if you have, of anybody who has cherries in their cherry trees and they're not taking care of them, just remove them. Growers have a crush test at the warehouse during packing to check for the pest, spotted wing Drosophila. And cherry fruit fly, western cherry fruit fly. The 2 of them look similar. And so, even though spotted wing Drosophila isn't as scary, it can still cause disruptions in the fruit industry. Spotted wing Drosophila causes cherry to decay when the egg is laid and spoils the fruit. In contrast, the western cherry fruit fly can lay its egg. The larva can leave the cherry and the cherry will look fine and still taste good. It'll have a tiny little pinhole that shows where the larva left the cherry. So it's still not good. Okay. Black cherry aphid. This is a bigger deal for organic growers.
Angel, could I interrupt a second?
Yes.
We have a question that just came in. What is a crush test?
It's where they take the fruit, a certain amount of fruit, and they crush it, and they give it time for the larva to float to the top. If you've made jam before, you can be inadvertently doing a crush test. You've crushed your raspberries. Has it ever happened where you see little white larvae floating to the top of your jam? Anyway, moving on, black cherry aphid. In organic cherry orchards, this is a serious pest. Check your cherry trees regularly throughout the summer for this pest. Aphids like terminals or new growth. Large numbers colonize terminal growth, causing the leaves to curl and die and dwarf fruit. Curl and die and dwarf fruit. Cut out infected leaves, bag, and destroy. Don't allow the cut leaves to lay on the ground. You need to bag them and get them out of the orchard. Apply delayed dormant applications of oil in the spring. You've got to be really proactive to get ahead of the aphids. Use the extendable pole pruner and picker to reach up and cut out a sucker at the top of the tree to check for aphids. Persilla. This is an important pest of pear in Washington. The honeydew produced by Persilla causes fruit russet and can stunt and defoliate trees. Growers spray Surround. This is an organic clay powder. It's white. They spray this in early spring to kill Persilla. When you drive to Kashmir in the spring, you might notice these orchards that have a white powder all over them. It's probably a pear orchard with Surround on it. Cultural tactics include summer pruning, and honeydew washing is to use sprinklers and air blast sprayers, and that helps to reduce fruit marking. Here are bud stage charts. This gives you the terminology for defining the specific stages of bud development and the critical temperatures associated with that stage of development. The terminology is used for frost, nutrient, and pest sprays. For example, in commercial orchards, zinc is sprayed around the side green stage, and horticultural oil is sprayed around green tip. You can assess these charts online or get a copy from the Tree Fruit Extension and Tiana DuPont. Diseases. Washington is the top apple and cherry state, like I said, and in Washington, Eastern Washington, we have the best climate for minimal disease issues. However, the following best practices further minimize disease issues. The key to disease prevention is reducing the duration and amount of leaf moisture in the canopy of your home orchard. In the yellow box, open the canopy for better air circulation and sunlight through pruning and training. In the orange box, eliminate weeds and keep grass short to minimize humidity. Red box, micro sprinklers or drip is best for keeping moisture out of the canopy. Closely observe your fruit trees throughout the growing season for signs and symptoms of diseased tree issues. And then healthy fruit trees resist plant disease better than stressed trees. I guess that's true for all plants. Powdery mildew. Use the extendable pruner picker to check for mildew in the top of the tree canopy. Prune out and destroy infected leaves early in the spring. Mildew is the biggest disease problem faced by home orchardists. Different species of fungi cause powdery mildew in apples, cherries, and soft fruits. Often the fungus overwinters in infected buds and vigorous new shoots of various hosts. Fire blight. This is a very serious, scary bacterial disease of pears and newer variety of apples. We grow newer variety of apples, and in our 30 years, it was like 6 years ago, we battled fire blight, and it was terrifying. This disease can destroy a mature orchard. Recommendations: remove all tree cankers during the dormant season. Bacterium appears to overwinter in tree cankers caused by infections during the previous year. Environmental conditions that promote fire blight are multiple warm days prior to wet weather during the bloom period. It can be induced by dew or irrigation. Early in the spring, fire blight bacteria will ooze from these cankers and can be carried by blowing rain. This disease is much more prominent on the west side of the state. And you can see in this picture, they call that a shepherd's hook, and that's a sign of fire blight. Bacterial canker. This affects all stone fruit, most seriously on cherries. Drip irrigation is your best choice. Symptoms are branch and trunk cankers and excessive gum exudates. Gum exudates on cherry trees refer to the oozing of sap or gum-like substances from wounds or injuries on the tree. Bacterial canker spreads by wind and water, and in the late fall may infect trees through leaf scars. Home orchardists should prune out infected and visibly affected branches in August. We grow our young cherry trees conventionally for the first 3 years, then we transition them to organic. Bacterial canker is a real setback when a tree is getting established. It's very hard to manage organically the first 3 years. Drip irrigation is the best choice because moisture on the trunk of the tree promotes the disease. Vertebrate pests. Birds will habituate to most auditory and visual control methods that remain in one place. Squawkers we use are battery operated, so the dancing socks we move daily. And we set these up well before the fruit changes color so that the birds are nervous and don't develop the habit of feeding in our orchard. Once they make the discovery, it's very hard to scare them away. For deer, fences work the best, and for rodents, we use the kestrel houses, and we keep our grass really short so they can't make their tunnels and homes. And so hawks have a better view. Harvest strategies. Commercial growers use color, size of the fruit, sugar content, the bricks, acid content, etc. When we harvest Honeycrisp, we look for the background color to be a straw or a light yellow color. And that's the top photo. You can see it's kind of a yellow background. And then that's my dad in the lower picture. He's happy to taste test. He loves Honeycrisp. And these are the resources I used and will provide master gardeners. So if you're in plant clinic and somebody's wondering if they should put in a home orchard, this can help. And I think that concludes. I'll stop my sharing. Okay.
Thank you, Angel. I will share the recording of this class with everybody,
Yeah.
as well as Angel's presentations. So let's see here. I wanted to do some takeaways here at the end, excuse me. And if I can get 3 or 4 people to tell me something that was brand new information, something they learned, or something that was reinforced, something that might change their practices, what they do. So I'm all ears. Sue. You are muted, Sue.
Yeah, I'm the person who asked the question about whether a wild native cherry shrub should be removed from my yard, and the answer was absolutely yes. That raises a concern in my mind because I purchased it from a nursery locally and it came without any warning. The others in our discussion group also were unaware of any warnings on, say, rootstocks or grafted apples and pears that are for sale in the markets presently or right now. They seem to come with no warnings about the possibility of pests and the legal responsibilities in this part of the world where it's so important that those pests be controlled. Are you aware of any movement to require nurseries to issue warnings when they sell these vulnerable products?
Yeah, it's a conundrum. I don't know of that. The best we've got is that Tri-County pest control. So it's why we love America. We have freedoms. And then we've got master gardeners.
Yeah, so my office is across from the conference room here in the extension office, and during the times when we have in-person diagnosis, there's the occasional person that comes in asking for advice on, hey, I want to put in some cherry trees in my backyard or apple tree, and so it's an opportunity for us to educate people that, yeah, okay, if you're going to do that, here's what you're signing up for. And for a lot of them, it is eye-opening. It is like, oh my gosh. And I would guess that the majority of them walk out the door rethinking their decision to do that. And
is there a general published pamphlet that has big red letters across the top that said warning if you plant these?
I'm sorry, what was that, Sue?
Is there any general brochure or pamphlet prepared for the people who visit master gardeners with big red warning letters across the top that says watch out if you plant these?
Well, we send them, again, we do educate them, let them know what's all involved, and yeah, their legal responsibility. Usually it includes a spray schedule once they do get it planted. So there's no confusion when they walk out what they're signing up for.
Thank you.
Let's see who else has a takeaway.
Learned how to prune my blueberries.
How many blueberries do you have Heidi, how many plants?
We've got about 8 plants. This is about their 3rd year, so I got to get out there and take care of them.
Anyone else? Tracy?
Well, I am not going to plant a fruit tree now. I was that one that was like, oh, I want to go get a pear tree. That'd be fun to have, but it is a big responsibility. And it just reconfirms my commitment to support local growers.
And I think it was Dale that mentioned in the class here recently that, it doesn't take much, we export a lot of our fruit, commercial fruit. And I think it was Japan, he said, or maybe it was Korea, where all it takes is one instance where they find this bug and the whole shipment is kaput. It's sent back. So yeah, it's very serious. There's a lot of money at stake.
Yeah.
There's livelihoods at stake.
Yes.
And if I can get one more, I'd feel really good about today.
Ask Nora about her experience with her almond tree.
Nora, do you want to share?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do have an almond tree and it is just beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful. So I pruned it back and it grew more, double the size, and it is very high. So I am having difficulties, spraying it. So I will have to research on that one. But I wanted to share, about that I learned about Caroline math. And it is a scary thing because I do have 2 apple trees. I have a mini dwarf for many years, never had any pests, nothing. So I planted another tree 3 years ago, and I think I have that. So I will have to cut it.
Well, I'm going to open it up. Does anybody have anything to add before we log out? Again, I want to thank Nancy Murphy, Al Murphy, Casey, and Linda Morse for helping out this morning, and also to the veterans for joining us, and trainees for willing to join us here in this virtual capacity as opposed to the in-person. And we'll go back to the regular in-person classes next Saturday. So hopefully I will see you this afternoon, some of you at the 3rd Saturday at the CEG. So we will see you a week from either later today or next Saturday.